G'day, welcome back. Mike here from agencysavvy.com. And in this module, we're going to talk about campaigns. Now, this is a fundamental building block to any AdWords account. We saw in the last module that you have an AdWords account that is made up of one or more campaigns. And then the campaign is where you collect all of your ad groups, and then each ad group contains one or more ads and one or more keywords. So why would you have more than one campaign? Let's start there. Well, you might have different types of campaign. You might have one for the search network, one for your shopping ads, and one for your banner ads. That might be one reason that you need more than one. Now, we're not going to talk about shopping and display in this particular course. Loads of stuff on that at agencysavvy.com if you really want to learn more about shopping and display. We've got tons of stuff on that. Another reason that you might have more than one campaign is you might have one for each location. That might be one for each country. So you might have a campaign for the States, a campaign for Australia, a campaign for New Zealand, a campaign for the UK, and so on. You may even have a campaign for each state that you're in. So if you're selling into half a dozen states in the US, then you might have one campaign for California and one campaign for Texas and one campaign for New Mexico, whatever it might be. If you sell different products, that might be another good reason. So you could have lots of different ad groups stuffed into the one campaign, but it's probably going to be cleaner and easier to manage if you had, one campaign for the doors that you sell, and one for the windows, and one for the awnings, and one for the shutters. It's probably just going to make life a little easier because there's so many different things here, but it would give you more control then. And really, this is what the game is all about here, giving you the maximum level of control so that you can get the best possible result. One setting, we're going to talk about settings in just a second, but one setting that we set, that's a really bad sentence, for campaigns is your budget. So let's go back to the doors and windows and awnings example. If you found that your ads for windows were absolutely crushing it and you were getting leads left, right, and center at a really, really good price, but doors were super expensive, if we lumped all of those ad groups together in the same campaign, we wouldn't really get much control over where the money got spent. If we separate those two things out into two campaigns, now I can wind the budget right down or even turn off the campaign about doors, and I can increase the budget for my Windows campaign and get more and more and more of those leads. Hopefully that makes sense. And then another really good reason is if you have very different CPA. So again, CPA could be cost per lead or cost per sale. So it stands for cost per action. It depends on the type of website that you've got as to what that really means to you. So in other words, if I've got one campaign that's focused on a particular product and I'm expecting my cost per lead, well, let's say doors and windows. Maybe my cost per lead for my windows is $50, but my cost per lead for my doors stuff is $200. Then again, that's another reason I don't want to mix the two together, because when I'm looking at this at a high level inside my account, and we'll talk about how to optimize things in a later module, but once I've got everything set up, this is not set and forget. I'm going to manage my account and I'm going to try and optimize my account. And when I'm looking at that at a high level, I might see this average of $120 in there. And that's not very helpful. But if I saw an average of 40 in my Windows campaign and an average of 300 in my Doors campaign, well, that would point me in the right direction. I know what I need to go work on today, because they're very, very different things, a different cost per lead. So therefore, I'm going to put them in different places. And so lots of reasons we might have more than one campaign. When you set up your campaign, you're going to pick a whole bunch of settings. I just want to quickly run through the main ones here. You're going to give your campaign a name. It doesn't really matter what your naming convention is, but be consistent with your naming convention. So have a way of naming it. Now, we typically, you can see at the top here, this is brand-dc-s. So we typically have something at the front there that tells us which type of campaign it is. In this case, it's a campaign that's going after brand keywords. So a brand keyword for someone like Brian Tracy might be Brian Tracy, or the name of one of his products or one of his books. That's a brand keyword. Samsung TV, that's a brand keyword. But secondhand TV, that would be a non-brand keyword. And then the middle bit, we generally put the location. So in this case, Washington, D.C. And we tend to use something fairly short in there so that our campaign names don't get crazily long, but not so abbreviated that nobody knows what it actually means and you have to go look it up somewhere. But DC, once you're familiar that this account tends to run in the DC and Baltimore area, then you know, okay, this campaign's a DC one, this one's a Baltimore one. That makes complete sense. And then the -S on the end tells us that this campaign is running on the Google Search Network. Networks, let's jump down there to the next one. With your search campaigns, you've got a couple of choices. It's either running by default, like this one is, across the Google Search Network and the Search Partner Network, or you can choose to turn search partners off. That's really the only choice you get. So Google Search Network, that's google.com, google.com.au, google.co.uk, basically Google search ads. The Search Partner Network is, well, for now, let's just treat it as a whole bunch of other places that you can show your search ads. I'm going to suggest with your very, very first campaigns that you turn search partners off. Once you get a bit of experience, feel free to turn them back on, get a little bit of extra traffic. But at the beginning, it'll make you just keep your data cleaner and give you less things to worry about. Generally speaking, Google Search tends to do a little bit better in terms of profit and so on than search partners, but you have no control over search partners. It's either all on or all off. And so because there's a lack of control there, I'm going to suggest to begin with, you turn it off. You get to choose where your ads show, and I'll talk in a bit more detail on the next slide about locations, but you can see that this particular campaign has 17 locations that it's targeting and 202 that were actively excluding. Now, you don't really need to worry about exclusions for now with your very first campaign. Just make sure that whatever location you're targeting is, again, not as small as possible, but go back to that thing that I mentioned in an earlier module, most likely to be profitable. So it's probably going to be more profitable if you're selling to people near you. So I'm in Melbourne, so the first place I might show ads would be Melbourne, and then if that's profitable, maybe I'll go the rest of Victoria. When that's profitable, maybe the rest of Australia, and only then would I think about selling internationally. Now, if you're a service business, you may or may not be able to sell more than 5Ks or 20Ks or 100Ks away from where you're physically located. You may not be able to service clients in the States or on the other side of the world from you. So think very carefully about where physically you want to show your ads. Bidding, you're going to start with your very first account using this thing called manual CPC, so cost per click. So in other words, Google, I want to be in charge of that, and we'll talk about bidding in a later module. But retain control of that for now. Google is working very, very hard on building lots of robots that are going to do all the bidding for you. Right now, I'm going to suggest you stay away from that and you bid it. You're going to learn far more if you're in control. Now, the most important thing here is to set a daily budget. Now, when you're starting out, you're probably not going to have a budget of $2,000 a day. Set that at $1 a day if you want. Maybe $5, $10, $20 a day when you're starting out. The only rule of thumb I'll say here is you generally want that to be at least, I'm going to say maybe at least 10 times whatever you're bidding for a particular click. So if you're bidding $1 per click, then I'd set your budget at around $10 a day as a minimum. If you're bidding $5 a click and your budget is $10, it doesn't really give Google much wiggle room to show your ads. 2 clicks and you're done for the day. And so the machine tends to get a little bit confused when you do that. You need to give the machine a little bit of room to breathe. If you have to bid $5 a day, then you probably need to be having a budget around about the $50 a day level. And if you can get away with 20-cent clicks, then you can have a minimum budget of $2 a day. But generally speaking, you are going to have to spend a little bit of money to gather a little bit of data in order to improve things and get this working. AdWords is not something that you should be expecting to be profitable on day one, or even month one for that matter. There is a learning curve, and you are going to have to spend a little bit of money with the market to improve things. I was lucky. I started when it was 5 cents a click all day long in 2004. It was a much easier time to learn. If you're starting out AdWords today, I would seriously consider getting an agency involved, getting somebody with some experience involved to at least set up your first few campaigns, and then you can run them. But getting the settings right, getting your keywords right, getting starting ad copy right is probably a good thing with your very first campaign. Certainly something to consider. All right, so we get to choose a bunch of locations, as I said before. I think I've covered this in enough detail. Really just start with what you think is most likely to be profitable. Even if that's a relatively small location, the most important thing is do not stick with all countries and territories. Don't show ads to the whole world. You really don't need to do that yet. Another really important setting when you're starting out are your devices. So when you're starting out, unless you've got evidence that suggests that people on mobiles are going to convert just as well as people on desktop computers, then my suggestion would be to turn mobiles off. And you do that with the completely non-intuitive way of setting this bid adjustment here. And instead of minus 10% that you can see on your screen here next to mobiles, you have a bid adjustment of minus 100%. That's how you turn mobiles off in AdWords. It's kind of different to Facebook, I know. But if you wanted to turn traffic off on mobiles, and if you can choose to turn mobile traffic off on tablets too, in which case you need a bid adjustment of minus 100% for mobile and minus 100% for tablet in order to turn mobile and tablet off. By default, your ads will be running across all 3 devices and bidding the same across all 3 devices. So it's up to you how you set those. And budgets we've covered. Just set whatever budget is sensible for you so that you're not going to melt a credit card, you're not going to lose your shirt. We don't want that to happen. So I'll see you in the next module, and we're talking about conversion tracking. Super, super important. Before you start running ads, we need a way of knowing what is working and what's not. So I'll see you for that in the next module.